name is Brad O'Brien, and today I'll be showing you around the iPad's hardware. To begin, let's start in the upper right-hand corner with the power and sleep button. Now this iPad's currently powered off, so we're going to hold down this button until the Apple logo shows up on the screen. So while the iPad's booting up, let's take a tour of the device. Up by the power button is a headphone jack. It uses a regular 3.5mm jack, so any stereo headphone will work just fine. On the front, note that we have just one button, our home button. Here's your camera on the front, as well as the camera on the back. On this side, we have a switch that mutes the iPad, as well as a rocker that increases the volume or decreases the volume. You can use the cord that comes with your Mac to charge it, as well as hook it up to a PC or a Mac. So connecting your iPad to your computer lets you sync any content you have in iTunes with your iPad. Your iPad box came with a wall charger and the cord, and with the USB on one end and the dock connector on the other. You should note it goes in just like that. Now, it only can go in one direction, so don't force the connection if it doesn't plug in easily. Another thing to note is that Apple has released a new iPad lately to use their new Lightning connector, which is much smaller and can be plugged in a lot easier. So if you have a brand new iPad or iPad mini, look for a different connector than what we have here. So now that we have a handle on our iPad hardware, it looks like our iPad's ready to go. Since this is the first time we turned on our iPad, there's a few setup questions that need to be answered that I'll walk you through. To begin, we just slide this bar from our left to our right and choose our language. English is already selected for us, so I can tap the arrow in the upper right-hand corner. The next question is our current country. Again, the United States has a check by it, so we'll tap the next button in the upper right-hand corner. The iPad screen requires us to choose a Wi-Fi network to activate the iPad. A list of the current Wi-Fi networks in the range is shown. If you don't have Wi-Fi available, you can plug in your iPad to your computer and use iTunes, or use your iPad's LTE connection if you have a 4G-enabled iPad. Otherwise, choose your Wi-Fi connection and enter the password. Once that's complete, tap Next in the top right corner. The next screen asks if I want to enable location services. This refers to the iPad's GPS and allows apps to use your current location. Some examples might be Maps for getting directions, Camera can tag photos with where the photo was taken, or Yelp can tell you what restaurants are nearby. I recommend you enable location services, but if you change your mind, you can always turn them on and off in settings. You also have the ability to grant individual applications access to location services, again back in settings once we're done setting up. Let's tap Next to move to the next screen. We're now given an option to set up a new iPad, restore from an iCloud backup, or restore from an iTunes backup. If you have another iOS device, like an iPhone or iPod Touch, and like to just load all of your apps, contacts, settings, and other information to the iPad, restore from a backup. Otherwise, just tap Setup as a new iPad and then the next button. The iPad would now like to enter either an Apple ID or create a new ID. Now this is your login for all things Apple and lets you buy apps, rent movies, use FaceTime, and sync your data to iCloud. If you currently have an iPhone or iPod Touch or ever bought a song from iTunes, you probably already have an Apple ID. Go ahead and tap Sign In with Apple ID. Otherwise, I'd highly recommend you tap Create a new Apple ID. Personally, I already have an Apple ID, so I'm going to tap that button and enter in my email and password. Once that is complete, you must read and accept the terms and conditions of use. I'm going to just tap Agree here in the bottom right corner, and then tap Agree again in the dialog box that pops up. And after a few seconds of waiting while the iPad communicates with Apple, I'm asked if I want to enable iCloud. iCloud is Apple's service that synchronizes contacts, calendars, photos, bookmarks, and other data between Apple devices. Even if you don't own an iPhone or MacBook, I recommend you turn iCloud on because of one particular feature we'll see again in the next screen. And that feature is iCloud Backup. This feature of iCloud will back up your iPad every day over Wi-Fi, so you don't have to. And make sure to do this while the iPad is charging and you're not using it. So, for example, at 3 in the morning while you're asleep, your iPad will back up your settings, photos, and apps for you every day. It's a great feature that's turned on by default, so let's tap the next button to move on. Here's another feature of iCloud called Find My iPad. If your iPad is lost or stolen, you can log on to iCloud.com to locate it on a map via GPS, make it play a loud sound, display a message, and even wipe the iPad's memory. Turning this on gives Apple permission to track the iPad when you log on to Find My iPad. So I'm going to enable Find My iPad, and then hit Next. The next screen is iMessage. This is Apple's instant messaging service and texting as well. It allows you to send and receive text messages from any Apple device or computer. You should see your Apple ID here. And if you already have an iPhone, any iMessages sent to your iPhone will now show up on your iPad as well. Since I already have an iPhone already associated with my Apple ID, my phone number is right there, plus other email addresses I've associated with my Apple ID. I'll leave all of those checked and tap Next. The iPad's next screen asks if we want to enable Siri. Siri is a virtual assistant that can help you compose text messages, buy movie tickets, tell you the weather, and even the score from last night's game. Go ahead and tap Use Siri, and then Next. Finally, our last screen is about diagnostics and usage. Apple would like you to send them anonymous information about how you use your iPad, what apps are crashing, and things like that. Whether you choose to send this info or not will have no effect on your iPad, so I'll go ahead and tap Automatically Send Information, and then the Next button. And that's it for setting up your iPad. We've got a congratulations screen that says tap the big button below to start using your iPad. And once we tap that, we get the iPad's home screen. So that wraps up our tour of the iPad's hardware and the initial startup process. If you'd like to learn more about setting up your email and how to use the apps that come preloaded on your iPad, click the link on your screen now. And for more information on how your organization can use telemedicine for patient encounters and continuing education, go to the University of Kansas Center for Telemedicine and Telehealth's website at www.kumc.edu/telemedicine. I'm Brad O'Brien. Thanks for watching.